Are these starting units meant to be used in maddening mode in Fire Emblem Engage? This is something I've been wondering since I've been doing my third and fourth maddening runs. And I've been doing two runs side by side. They're both on Chapter 19. In one run, I run Anna, min-max a lot of my units, and run optimal units. And on the other run, I run a lot of starter units and try to squeeze as much value out of them as humanly possible while pushing them into relevance, which has actually proven to be so difficult that in some cases I just straight up dropped some of those starting units in favor of units like Chimera, Marin, Ivy, Hortensia, Linden, he's like a replacement. Fram is doing okay, but I also have Gold Mary now instead of like Louis, and then I have Panette. The only starting units that are still on the team are Fram, Saline, Etie. Now in this run I didn't use Chloe at all. So I literally didn't use her on purpose because she's one of my early game carries. And you just hand her a steel lance that's engraved and she'll farm and just kill tons of things and double and pop off throughout the entire game when used correctly without like a ton of investment. So because I have these two runs side by side, it's kind of taught me a lot about these units. So for example, Alchrist more or less outclasses Etie. And Etie in her niche, which is like a warrior bow user, is outclassed by other things pretty easily. So this Etie has an internal level of, I want to say 24 to 25. I overfed her a ton of XP. She still struggles to double. So this is an overfed unit that has base 25 strength. Now compare her to Saphir, who I did nothing to, and has 24 strength. Like, hold on, look at the difference in stats. 41 health, 51 health, 24 strength versus 25 strength while being overfed, stealing XP from other units. That strength was not free. That is a clear distinction. If that was just using her normally, I fed her the entire run, and I also fed her like most of all of the enemies on Chapter 13. All that XP just went right to her. And this is super late game. Like, this is approaching the end game, like the end of the middle of the game. And this unit is better than this unit with investment without investment. She also comes with a Brave Axe and a Tomahawk, both of which are worth a lot. But her stats are decent. She's 15 build. And she has decent speed, too. Look at her speed. She has 19 base speed. 19 defense, 9 res. Now let's compare that to Etie. 10 defense, 9 res. So she's way tankier. She's a little faster. She has better build. I had to do nothing to get this unit. Now, the main unit that's competing with Etie is not Alchrist. I think people get confused. There's a few like hardcore fans of hers that find success running her, but arguably they could be running anything on Warrior and be better. And the thing she's competing with is this monstrosity. Panette is a psycho on wheels. She will kill everything you put in front of her, and she just outclasses Etie on Warrior so much so that it's disgusting. So even if you find success using Etie early game, as soon as Chapter 13 hits, this is like super early in the middle game, you get Panette, and she's just insane. She has more build, way more health, way higher strength, completely outclasses Etie in every regard. There is nothing that Etie can do that Panette doesn't do better. And this is kind of the theme of the video, where some of these advanced mid-game units that are handed to you are pure upgrades to existing units. So a lot of people compare Etie and Alchrist. I don't think that's the comparison. I think really it's Etie and Panette, because both want to be on Warrior, and Panette, look at the health difference. 41 versus 57 health. Her speed is 0 because she has Ike's engraving, so her speed is actually like 16 to 18. It's about the same. So she has 18 speed on a longbow, which is pretty good because her build is so high that she can wield anything. And this is on Erica, so she doesn't have build increase. She just has, 13 build, and then she has 15 build. So on Warrior, you have like a mid-game unit that outclasses her, and a late-game unit that outclasses her. And I didn't have to invest in either of these much to get them. Like this one I have 0 investment in. I haven't even used her yet, and she's already outclassing her. And this one, with just using her, not even feeding her, just having her kill things with the Brave Axe, shooting things down as needed, drastically outclasses her. The same is true of Fram. Anna outclasses Fram, but she outclasses her early game and also Saline. So Anna outclasses both of these on Magic because she has better Dex growth, Luck growth, speed. Actually, Fram has 5% more speed, but Anna has 50% base Magic, so she'll always outdamage her. And Fram will never be faster than Anna. Anna also has more build than Fram by, I think, 1 point, and she has 5% build growth, so she's faster in that way. 5% difference of speed on fixed maddening is, 1 point of speed every 20 level ups. So Fram is never going to be faster than Anna. And then same thing is true for Saline. Now these are serviceable units. Same thing with Etie. Like they're usable. Like they'll do stuff. She'll shoot down flyers with kind of average accuracy, and these will kind of deal some decent damage. And if you stack their speed up enough, like I did with Fram, she can double a lot of enemies. So a lot of these enemies have like 23 speed. You can see some have 29. The faster units like heroes and stuff like that, and sword masters. But she doubles most of these enemies, so she is viable. Like, she's definitely more than viable. She's, like, high B, low A tier. And with Saline, I would say she's, like, B tier after running her in a bunch of maddening runs. The big advantage of putting Corrin on her could be used on any mystical, as far as I can tell. It'll give them access to fire. So you could throw this on a Sage. But Pandreo is better than both of these, by far. Anna is better than both of these. So there's like, I would say like 3 different classes of units. There's your bad unit. No, I'm kidding. There's your early game units that you can invest in that will be viable but won't hard carry, like your starter units. There's your good units, which you acquire, some are early game, like Chloe's early game and she's decent. So there's some other good units that are early game. And there's also the good units you get, like Panette, Marin, Chimera, who else? Pandreo. These units are just free. Fogato's pretty good too, but he does have strength problems super late on, which most people will acknowledge. Ivy's really good, Hortensia's really good, Kagetsu, Zelkov. These are all like your good, basically already strong units. When the game hands them to you, they're already useful, they're already viable. And then there's the pupils. So you have like Jean and Anna. And I think like some people want to make arguments that units like Etie, maybe Saline, maybe Fram, maybe Clan are like pupils. But the problem is, when like a true pupil archetype is an underleveled unit that has some massive advantage with investment. So in the case of Anna, you get an insane mage, if like one of the fastest, highest magic growth units in the game that also generates money. So you get a really solid unit who also makes you some money. And if you want her to make you more money, feed her more kills. If you just want to use her as a solid mage, use her as a mage. Sometimes she'll make you money. So there's that pupil. And then there's the Jean pupil, which his advantage is that he can class into basically anything and get insane growth rate on literally any role. And as long as you understand which things to put him in, he will snowball into anything as a hard carry. So he can be a hard carry utility, a hard carry mage, a hard carry physical, and he will power level himself, as his stats snowball. So those are the pupils. And then your good units are units that with a basic game plan, no overinvestment, they will pop off and do something meaningful. And then you have like your starter units, which with a ton of investment have friction. Like they have like things that are fundamentally pushing them down. So in Etie's case, it is her bad durability and her low speed for her level and her low max health. So she can't take a hit. And some people argue that your archers shouldn't be getting hit. But I think your archers, it should be okay for your archers to get hit if they can counterattack, deal meaningful damage, and grab space. That is something that a unit like this cannot do. And similarly with Fram, she is viable. She's definitely more viable than Etie. She definitely contributes more with like a basic build. But the difference between the two is Fram can do everything Anna can do, but just worse. So she is a good unit. She's potentially like high B tier, maybe low A, like somewhere in between there. But she basically is just a worse Anna. She doesn't have the good passive that Anna has that makes money. And even if that passive only makes you like 5k throughout an entire run, that's still enough money to fund some upgrades. And that's like low. That's on the low end. Usually Anna will make you 50 to 100k if you optimize her luck even slightly, just by putting Byleth plus luck passive on her. And you can still run like, you know, other passives on her as well to make her more offensive, like Speed Taker or something. So, and then the Saline is like kind of like a bad Pandreo. So like there's units like these start, and then Alfred is kind of like a bad Chloe. Like as soon as you get Alfred, he's like the mounted unit. Then the game hands you Chloe, and she just has more speed and more mobility because she's a flyer, and she just pops off whereas he doesn't. So there's essentially like these starter units living in the shadow of these good units. Like we'll just call them what they are. They're better units. And is that good for the game? That's something that I was considering. Like that's one of the reasons why I'm making this video. Should there be bad units in these games where there's just like objectively stronger options just sitting on the table as you enter chapters? On one hand, it can be good for if you lose a unit, you have a replacement. On the other, it can be bad if you invest in a unit and then all of a sudden there's just this better thing, so you feel like you've just wasted effort on something because something better exists that you had to do literally nothing for. So it kind of creates this problem where if you invest in like certain units early and you have no idea which units are good or bad, if it's a blind run or something, you basically get punished indirectly because the better units are just sitting there. You don't have to do anything to improve them. So there's like pros and cons to this system. I think early units, if you invest in them, they should pop off. I think that should be a thing. I think if an early unit is going to be like worse than middle game units that the game hands you, they should have some advantage over those units in some way, or at least some unique aspect to them. Like if Etie had insanely high strength, she just has like above average strength, and she was a glass cannon, I wouldn't have a problem with her because I would understand like her purpose. But because Panette has way higher strength than her and better bulk, she's literally just a bad Panette. She also has less build. So it's not so much that the unit can't do something or isn't viable. It's just that other units have better stats and essentially have an advantage, and the game hands you this advantage without you doing anything. Just by getting to a certain chapter, it's like, here's Panette. Here's one of the strongest like axe units in the game. Honestly, I think there's a strong case to be made that Panette is S tier on Brave Axe. She seems to one-round every single thing that the game throws at me. Like, look at her strength right now. She has pH 50 on a Brave Axe. Now let's look at Aleer right now. pH 41 on a Steel Sword +3. This unit is really cracked. And also she gets more damage from Erica, but I don't even know that she needs it. This pushes her over the edge so that she one-rounds literally everything she attacks. And her hit isn't bad either. 138 hit is not bad. It's not as accurate as a sword. But, you know, if she increases her bond with Erica, that will get her dex up. And, you know, dex is accuracy. So, alright, so let's flip this. So what do you think about... So definitely drop a comment. What do you think about the pre-promoted units, like some of these units like Panette? Do you think this is good for the game? Do you find that the starting units fall off? I think universally most people have found that to be the case. And I think the people who haven't found that to be the case tend to dislike the units or have like a bias for these units. But numbers don't lie. And any like amount of debate around the effectiveness of something is always going to come down to what are the other options? How good are these other options? So if I'm comparing one-to-one Panette with Etie, there's no competition. Like, the damage just isn't there. So she hits a 40 with a longbow. She hits a 33. That's a damage difference of 7 on a unit who has no other advantage over Panette. And also Panette has a pretty good passive that lends itself to crit builds that has a pretty easy condition to meet. So she basically does everything she does, but better. She does have this. Honestly, I wish this was different. This is just such a weird skill. So you have to use like a vulnerary on yourself. So you have to get... The funny thing about this is especially bad on Etie because she's notoriously horrible at taking damage. Because she tends to get doubled by everything that attacks her and dies to most things that attack her. Now on this map, all the 23 speeds will one round her. These don't really attack, they just heal, so those aren't going to really attack. So on this map, I don't think she can tank anything on this map. Maybe this. So in order for her to get +2 strength, I have to have enemies near the back of their formation hit her, and she has to survive. These hit for 44, so she would barely be able to tank these. And this is the only thing on the map she can tank. Everything else will double her and one round her. 40 damage times 2, hitting against 10 defense, that's 60 damage, she's dead. That's on Silver Bow. She can get up to 19 speed on Killer Bow and Steel Bow. But compare that to Panette, who has higher defense and higher health, who can actually tank 60 damage. Because she gets an extra 12 reduced because of the 6 extra defense, and she has more health. She can actually tank a thing, even at 0 speed. So there are real number differences between these units, and I do call it out in my guides. Some people feel like I'm talking crap about the unit. I'm just being honest about the unit. I don't really have favorite units. I have units that I like more than others, but I don't really have like a unit that I'm obsessed with. Some people think it's Chimera, but she's like one of the 5, maybe 6 units I tend to use just because they seem effective. I always run Marin. Like Marin and Chloe are 2 of my main units. Ivy, Hortensia, I always run those. I think male Allure might be better than female with Chloe, because then you have female flyers and you have a male flyer. But female Allure looks way cooler, which is very important. She looks way better on Wyvern. Male on Wyvern, he looks a little goofy because he has like big inflated pants. So if he looked cooler, if they made him look more like a badass, then I'd be all for it. But it looks like my army is mostly female, plus an old guy and a dancer. All right, so definitely drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this system. Do you think my assessment is accurate? Are these early units just like straight up worse than some of the units you get later on? And what do you think about the pupils? Do you think the pupils, with investment pop off? I feel like statistically they do, like in terms of numbers and stats. Because like a lot of the arguments about like Alfred, about Etie, about Saline, about Fram, tend to be based around their growths, assuming that they're gonna, their growths are good. But the thing is, it doesn't factor in their bases and also what else is available. So, when the game just hands you Gold Mary, you can invest in Louis the whole time. But this is like a Gold Mary that's leveled up, 4 times. And she's already at 34 defense, whereas Louis at General at level 4 on one of my other playthroughs is at like 26 defense. So with 0 investment, I already have a better tank. So even that is the case. There's like tank upgrades. There's like warrior, berserker, sniper upgrades, axe unit. She could be on Wyvern too, but she's probably better off on warrior. There's mage upgrades. There's cav upgrades. There's tank upgrades. Like there's pretty much everything. There's an upgrade for almost everything. And personally, it was a little jarring for me to like invest in units, feed them kills, level them up, and then the game is like, here's this thing, but better. It's like, well, why the hell am I even giving this experience? Like, it just feels like a waste now. I don't think it's good. I think the starter units, if you invest in them, should be a little bit stronger. And I think it's stupid that Etie is so, like, glassy, and Fram and Clan feel so weak. And Saline, like, Saline's decent, but she has trouble doubling, and on a mage, like, here's what you want to be doing in this game. You either want to kill a thing by hitting really hard with a crit, with a brave weapon, that's like the slow route, or even just like a high might weapon, or you want to double with a medium damage weapon with low weight, with high speed, whatever you can double with, or quad with a brave weapon to get the weight down or the build up on the unit so that you can quad or double. And those are like the main modes of dealing damage. And when you have a unit that can't do either of those, like, she's still decent and she still helps and she puts chip damage on things, but when you have units that can consistently double or consistently one round with like, low speed might based or high magic based builds, it does feel weird having these like in between units who can't really do either of those things very well. Now on a tank, I don't expect a tank to one round things. It's a utility, right? So I feel like Saline kind of falls in this weird category where it's almost like she wants to be a utility mage And she does have staves, which, you know, cool, but like most things have staves, so that's not really unique to her. Like Sage has staves, and I like arguably Sage is probably better than Vidam. I think Levin's sword might be a little bit overrated right now because you can just upgrade your tomes. Like you can just turn your fire into an L-fire and it'll be early game hard carry with low weight, and basically is just better than Levin's sword because it'll double more consistently. So I think that's something I kind of tried it out on my 3rd and 4th run, and honestly I kind of regret it. Maybe even getting an early game Bolganone would be, I always call it Bologna because it sounds like bologna almost, or it's spelled like bologna. But yeah, I don't think it's good for the game. I mean, maybe if the idea is these units are kind of expendable, and then you get better units, that's fine. But I think coming from 3 houses to this, where you basically 3 houses is a different thing. It's like you just invest in your units immediately, and those are your units, and you try to recruit the units you want to run for the entire game early on, and the game never hands you extra units. So I guess that's maybe why it feels weird to have like starter, quote unquote, starter units than good units and like the pupils. I like the pupils. I think those are interesting. I like that you can build them in different ways, and there's a huge advantage to doing so. I feel like all the starter units, I think there should be, like, instead of bad units, like bad starter units, it should be like mini pupil. So it'd be like a kind of pupil unit where it has better than normal growth rates, but it starts off with bad bases, so that as you use it throughout a run, it starts to snowball mid-game. That would be fine. But currently, the bases and the growth rates just aren't there for some of these units, and they just have a statistical disadvantage in relation to other mid-game units the game hands you. So, alright, that's it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe. Peace.